Okay, hey, hello again. This is Dan and Bear with Modus Robotics. And I wanted to briefly go over a little bit about, what is it underneath the hood, or what is it that we actually do. So probably the first thing I want to talk about is the industries that we actually work with here. So we're not really into doing real estate or using a camera in that shape, but what we're really working with is companies that have either a large land management responsibility, or they're dealing with distributed assets over a large area. Really we're being more tailored to collection that would be using beyond line of sight, even though right now the current industries or the current regulatory things that are going on are really about point source, and a lot of the drones out there are electrical in nature, and we do use them, or we do work with clients to help them with that primarily, but our focus really is on large area coverage, large area data capture, and large area or large data volume processing and analysis. So industries would be civil engineering, environmental companies, along with precision forestry, different types of energy and utility companies, whether it's oil, gas, doing solar analysis, or wind and terrain analysis. Agriculture a little bit, but more into the vegetation analysis, determining invasive species, terrain, stuff like that. Mining and geology, we do a lot of stuff working a little bit with volumetrics, but also safety analysis using drones and stuff like that. And then getting into emergency and mitigation. I know we just had the floods coming up. Primarily a lot of those guys, which I thought was actually great to see, were out looking at individual infrastructure doing point source. Really more focused on what's the overall impact. What's the whole town look like? What's the watershed look like? What is the sediment that was left behind in a large scale function? What do the corridors look like? Not just from the individual towers, but are we seeing degradation in, do we get erosion? Are they tilting? So that kind of change management, which is, a life cycle type of approach, which means that we'd have to actually take a look at it now before the actual trouble hit, and then look at it again so we could see that trend and do that predictive maintenance. So that's really what we're looking at as our niche. So then when we look at what is our service offerings, really, because this is an emerging market, we have three basic offerings. One is we do consulting, and the areas that we actually do consulting are like first and primary is business analysis. Yes, we're a drone company and we're a data innovation company. It doesn't make any sense to take on our services if you're not going to get a return on your investment. And so that's the first thing I look at when you bring your requirements at is okay, first, do you have a viable business case with this technology? And then can you achieve results? So what's your bottom line look like? After that, we look at regulatory environment. We look at user case and process development. What are you doing now, and then how can we instill achievable, high-performing, replicatable processes in your current workflow to achieve results. So that's one of our hallmarks, what we really are doing. And then we go out and look at, okay, what's the best drone, what's the best sensor, what's the best data analytics that you need. Those are parts of that process. For clients, for corporations that are looking to have their own program, we cover aviation maintenance, safety programs, which is a big thing with us, both for operational safety and aviation safety. Because really, when you're dealing with drones, it's the mix. We did something for a client about a year and a half ago. And they actually had me try to take a look at their safety management program, and they had a really nice aviation safety professor take a look at it, and he wrote out a great job if you were a commercial aviation industry and it didn't apply for point source drones. And so understanding what your operational safety requirements are versus your aviation, and then being able to blend those two is instrumental for using drones, because it's not a pilot using it, it's an operator. He's not operating 500 feet above terrain or 1,000 feet above terrain. He's operating in close proximity to people and infrastructure. And so you have to weigh out both of those. Get off my soapbox on that. But we also do remote sensing data products. So we can tell you about what sensors to use. We do with a lot of manufacturers. And so what we're seeing, like a lot of the sensors being used by drones today aren't as good as what aviation are using. But that doesn't make them bad. That just means you have to use them smarter, or you have to put the right platform with them. So then along with that, in addition to consulting, which is really an extension of it, is process improvement, or what we call industrial engineering. And in industrial engineering, we have three basic arms that we look at. First is that business analysis, and I'll have a whole video that talks about 8 business analysis cases or metrics that you can look at drones at and see if you have a viable process or a really good business need. The next thing is being a quality specialist or a Lean Six Sigma black belt type company. You won't hear me use those terminologies, but we'll be using those disciplines behind the scenes to define your process, to measure what's going on, to model what you're doing now, and to reshape your process using all this technology so that you get work optimization. And that means you're sending your skilled labor to places that require their services versus just doing a regular inspection, because really you trained them, so you want them to do what you're paying them for, and that's to fix things. And we give you ways to actually track that. A lot of what we do is agile, so that means we do everything in short sprints, and we take off small chunks along the way. We don't try to sell you a nice shiny object. We try to ease you into the seat, so to speak. Along with that, is we ask when you're working with us, the first thing when we sit down for that first consultation is to really understand your requirements. What is it that you strategically want to achieve? What do you want to tactically achieve? And what have you already done right now? So knowing what it is that you're wanting to achieve, and even knowing your process. What are you doing now? A lot of companies say they know the process, but then when we start to actually itch at it a little bit, they realize that there is actually more divergence in that process than they really realized. And that's normal, and that's okay. But realize when you're working with us, we're going to look at that. And then understand what your budget constraints are, because as you'll hear from a lot of folks, we can build you anything, but it may cost you. So if you have a smaller budget, we may have to tailor back or change that solution for you based on your need. Again, we're really not into selling shiny objects, so you'll hear that over and over and over from me. We do sell different types of sensors. We're aligned with drone manufacturers and sensor operators. We don't disclose that up front as far as who, because different vendors have different strengths based on what the end user's needs are. So just be aware of that. Along with that industrial engineering piece is that when you do industrial engineering, which really is about process development, the last thing you're going to do is document. So we'll set up control procedures so that when you're contracting, you have those standards to hire off of, or if you're a service provider, you know what the standards are. You'll have documentation on what that is. But the last piece, probably the most important piece, is training. Because if you're not training your internal staff or your service providers that are going to work for you, then you don't have a sustained process. And that's really what if you're going to spend all that money, that's what that's about, is putting a high profit, high yielding process in place and making it sustainable. So things that we can do training on obviously are different sensors. We have a whole remote sensing or data specialist suite. We have 12 project managers that have been doing remote sensing for over 20 years. Behind that, we have over 100 independent contractors that work with us to tailor data products for you, whether it's LiDAR, thermal, multispectral, hyperspectral, radar, GIS, data fusion is another thing that we offer. And we can even do as-is three-dimensional modeling in BIM. So those are all the things on the data suite that we can, model for you, but also do training for you as well. Because we realize that some companies want to do it in-house and other companies want to do it via outsourcing. The other piece that with training would be flight training. And we're not into the Part 107, take a test, go fly. There's a number of good companies out there doing that right now. Whether I agree or disagree, it's irrelevant. What we're into is flight safety and industrial process. So how do you fly at night and how do you do safely? How do you identify those kind of risks? Vertical inspection, how do you maintain separation? How do you get over visual perception? How do you maintain separation? How do you use first-person views and observers around aerial platforms, even from a distance? We figure that kind of stuff out. Primarily, we're not into first responder, but I do a lot of volunteer work for some of the local, like Swiftwater Rescue and Fire Department Search and Rescue, just because of my aviation background and doing search and rescue and watching bad guys for a long time. So we can do we call PET analysis. So if you're familiar with that, if you're not, then we're not going to do anything for you. But also we can do search and coordination. And search and coordination is a little bit different than search and rescue, but how do you use that drone sensor to move people around the ground and build situational awareness? So that is one of the trainings that we provide. Flight safety is another big one, maintenance programs, and then just general operation. We do have mobile training teams, and we can do customized training. So those are a large piece of our infrastructure. And then the last piece that we offer is data services. Mentioned that already in quite a bit, and I'll have other videos on that topic for you if you're interested. So how would you work with us? Well, the first thing you would do is reach out and actually contact us. We'd sign non-disclosure agreements. I want you to feel comfortable that we're not going to disclose any of your sensitive information. Most of our folks have top secret clearances. We really know what sensitive information is. The next thing we'll want to do is go through your requirements. So we really ask that you understand what it is that you actually want to achieve. Know your budget, again, so that when we sit down, we can actually have a good conversation about what's feasible at your entry level. I've developed systems that were $30-40 million, very complex, and took 5 years to build. And we've had other things that we can put together in just a matter of weeks. But it really depends on your budget and what you want to achieve. And the last is be flexible. And I mean that because I know drones are exciting and they're sexy, but that may not be the best way to tackle that solution. I had someone the other day ask me if I could make a drone window washer. And he's like, yeah, I totally could do that, but why? There's a lot of other systems out there that are energy efficient, simpler to use. So when you work with us, we'll give you a whole series of options. And then using data and metrics will help work together to find that solution. But be flexible, because what you start off with is never really what you end with. And we're always surprised at what that solution actually looks like. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and it gives you a little bit of more light on the vast offerings that we actually have inside the house here. And I look forward to hearing from you. All right, have a great day.